All right, we're going to dive into a pretty fascinating medical puzzle. It's all about one simple instruction, something you might hear over the phone, that is completely changing the odds of survival during a cardiac arrest. So let's get right into it.
You've seen it 1,000 times in movies, right? The hero rushes in, starts chest compressions, tilts the head back, gives those two rescue breaths. It's iconic. So imagine you're on the phone with 911 and the dispatcher tells you to just skip the breaths. It feels wrong, doesn't it? Like, is that a mistake? Are they giving you bad advice? Well, the answer is a hard no, and the reason why is absolutely brilliant. And this, right here, is why it matters so much. The stakes could not be higher. In some parts of the world, if you have a cardiac arrest outside of a hospital, your chance of survival is a shocking 2%. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. The single biggest thing that can change that number is someone, a bystander, taking immediate action. But for decades, that just wasn't happening nearly enough. So that instruction from the dispatcher to skip the breaths, it's not some simplified, dumbed-down version, and it's definitely not an error. It's a very carefully designed, deliberate global strategy, and it's aimed squarely at tackling that terrifying survival number. The world's top medical experts realized the old way, while technically correct, had a fatal flaw. And what's so wild is how this became a global thing. I mean, just look at this. You've got three totally different places: the US, Taiwan, and China. They've got different legal systems, different levels of public training, all that. But just ignore all that for a second and focus on that top row, the primary instruction. They all landed on the exact same simple command: push hard and fast. That is not a coincidence, my friends. That is a solution to a universal human problem.
And that problem? It isn't strictly medical. It's psychological. Turns out, the biggest obstacle to saving a life in that critical moment isn't the lack of a defibrillator or some fancy equipment. It's us. It's our own hesitation to jump in and act.
And the research is crystal clear on this. The idea of performing mouth-to-mouth on a total stranger is, for a lot of people, a massive barrier. You know, people worry about hygiene, about catching some disease. There's a definite yuck factor. And that single step was causing so much hesitation that a lot of people would just freeze and do nothing at all, which is literally the worst possible thing you can do. This chart really tells the whole story. You see that fear of disease from mouth to mouth down there at 15%? Well, it's actually part of a whole web of anxiety. The number one fear is actually causing more harm. Then you've got fear of being sued and just a general lack of confidence. The old, complicated way of doing CPR just fed into all of those fears. Hands-only CPR was designed to tear them down one by one.
Okay, so how does this actually work? How does doing less actually save more lives? Well, it all comes down to three incredibly powerful pillars that address the science, our own psychology, and even the law. First up, the physiology. So think of your circulatory system like an old-fashioned water pump that you have to prime. To get blood flowing up to the brain and to the heart muscle itself, you have to build up pressure. That pressure has a name: coronary perfusion pressure, or CPP. Now here's the kicker. Every single time you stop doing compressions to give breaths, that pressure plummets straight down to zero. Gone. And then it takes several more good hard pushes just to build it back up again. With hands-only CPR, you never stop. The pump stays primed, and that crucial oxygenated blood keeps flowing. Second, and this might be the most important part, is the psychology. By taking away the rescue breaths, you remove the single biggest reason people hesitate. Just look at the comparison. Hands-only is way easier to teach, it's much easier to remember when you're under incredible stress, and, this is the big one, it leads to a faster time to first compression. In a cardiac arrest, every single second counts. This simple change gets that life-saving clock started so much sooner. And finally, there's the law. To fight back against that fear of being sued, legal systems around the world have basically created this global shield for people who step up to help. In the US, you've got Good Samaritan laws that protect you from civil lawsuits if you're acting in good faith. China actually changed its national civil code to stop those extortion scams you might have heard about. And in Taiwan, the law is super smart. It makes the dispatcher the medical authority, so by following their instructions, you're protected. The message from all of them is loud and clear. If you try to help, the law has your back.
Okay, so I know what you might be thinking right now. Does this mean rescue breaths are totally useless? Are we just throwing them out the window for good? And that is an excellent question. The answer is no, not always. See, there are very specific situations where rescue breaths are still absolutely the best way to go.
This is mostly for cases where the problem started with a lack of oxygen in the first place. Think about drowning victims, drug overdoses, or most cardiac arrests in kids. In those scenarios, the breathing stopped first. But for the most common type of cardiac arrest, a sudden collapse in an adult, their blood already has plenty of oxygen for the first few critical minutes. The problem isn't a lack of oxygen, it's a lack of circulation.
So, after looking at all of this, the science, the psychology, the law, we have to ask the most important question. What does this all mean for you? It all boils down to this one simple, powerful idea. The most technically perfect CPR in the world is completely useless if nobody starts it. Hands-only CPR is pushed so hard because it dramatically increases the chance that someone, anyone, will just act. The bottom line is this. Good CPR is CPR that gets done. Doing something is infinitely better than doing nothing. And really, it all comes down to these 4 incredibly simple steps. First, you call for help. Then, you put the heel of one hand right in the center of the chest, put your other hand on top of that, and just push hard and fast. That's it. Aim for about 100 to 120 beats per minute. Think of the song Stayin' Alive. That's the simple, memorable, and incredibly effective instruction that is saving lives all over the world. So we end up right back where we started, but now with a completely new understanding. Knowing the why behind that simple command, knowing the science of keeping the blood flowing, the psychology of removing fear, and the legal protections that have your back, it changes everything, doesn't it? It's not just a random rule anymore. It's a powerful, intelligent tool designed to empower you to save a life. And now you know exactly why the real world's approach is so different and so much smarter.